Hi, everybody. I'm Beth. I'm a compulsive eater, and every day I write my food down, share it with my sponsor, and make it and eat it. And it's delicious. And abstinence and sobriety are the most important things in my life. I wouldn't have much of a life without those two things. It's great to be here and see all your faces. I'm going to try real quick to share my screen. Can you see that? I
Yep.
don't know. Okay. So that is me after, now I don't know how to stop sharing it. Okay, stop share. I got it. So that was me after 10 years of trying to get back to gray sheet. I wasn't at my heaviest. I was at my heaviest before I got into gray sheet the first time. And I hit 200 pounds fat, and then I stopped weighing myself. I was in my 40s. That picture that I just showed you was about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. And it was after, as I said, about 10 years of trying to get back to gray sheet. I I've always escaped with food ever since I was a kid. My whole family, we have weird things about eating and drinking and other things too. Believe me, it's not really funny. Um, so much so that I didn't know that our food behavior was anything but normal. I didn't know that there were people who didn't like have a whole bunch of stuff under their bed. I didn't know there were families that had to hide things so that the children wouldn't get to them. I mean, I'm sure a lot of families have to do that with certain things, but with my family, it was pretty out. It was pretty extreme. I mean, people would say, "Don't eat that; it's mine," and that would mean absolutely nothing because it's just the power of not understanding that food was like fair game because it's food, I can't even explain it, but you probably know what I mean. Um, so I grew up, as far as food goes, also very, very obsessed with weight and looks. So that whole dichotomy uh, created a really strange and shame-based existence. My mother had been thin. I didn't know she had been also bulimic before it was, everybody knew about it. In the 40s, she was bulimic as a teenager and young adult. Then when she got pregnant with me, she stopped all that. And so she gained a lot of weight. Not a lot, but enough to make her miserable about it until now, 66 years later, she still moans and groans about how she can't she's overweight, and she is overweight. Um, so I had that as an example, and I really I don't think I consciously said it to myself as a young adult that I didn't want to end up like that, but it was always in my mind. I stayed fairly thin when I look at pictures of myself until my 20s. Um, I never was satisfied with how I looked, but I wasn't overweight. I don't think I was. Um, But then after I quit smoking and got pregnant and stopped drinking, I just started eating. Imagine that. I gave up some things that I used to escape, cigarettes and alcohol and drugs, and but I still needed to escape. And so I went back, or maybe I had never left, eating compulsively. And my eating story isn't that unusual. I would just eat what I liked. I would try to get through the day, and maybe and when I was a young mom, I would try to get the child in bed, and didn't have a happy marriage, so I would just try to get to like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, where I could sit in the chair and just eat. Um, and then I could, I can still remember that like feeling that like finally I can escape and just feed my face and um the next day I always felt pretty bad. Well, you know how I felt. I felt bad. And it went on like that for many years through all the ups and downs of my first marriage and my job teaching and having a couple kids and a cat and all that jazz. I fought my compulsive overeating unsuccessfully. I went to OA. I tried everything like the deal a meal, and I didn't go to Weight Watchers because I was always kind of poor because my first husband was kind of like, he just kept us that way. It's a whole other story. And I just I thought, well, I don't need to spend money. I mean, I was in AA and I knew that, I could go to OA and I could do it, but I never could do it. And I didn't know why. I met a lot of nice people in OA, and, um, you know, there were a lot of different diets. The eating man's diet, that's the one where you eat like a pig for 2 days and then you fast for 2 days and then it goes back and forth, and just all the diets. My parents did a lot of them. Tops, take off pounds sensibly. My mom. Anyway, so you guys know all that stuff. So none of it worked. And you guys know that too. None of it worked for me. And I don't really need to go into the stuff that made me need to escape. Some of that is still with me, of course, because it's a big part of who I am. But what I do need to say is that the escape was with a high price, and it wasn't just my weight and that my health issues that started to really get, I mean, not bad, but I was in my 40s. So my feet hurt and my back hurt and stuff like that. But it was in my head. It was that lack of self-esteem and that setting myself up for failure all the time. That was every day. And I mean, I just couldn't, I want to say a person just can't sustain that. But I want to just say I had a hard time sustaining that kind of self-abuse. I also have my older daughter had a really severe anorexia and bulimia in her teens and early 20s. And so that's when I got into GreySheet. I found it on the internet, right? There were a lot of different recovery sites on the internet back then. And so that was maybe 20 years ago. And so I got into GreySheet. I got a sponsor. I lost the weight. It worked for me. I tried to make phone calls. I went to a couple events, like a retreat in Tennessee, and my first sponsor left, and that was hard. I got another sponsor. So anyway, for about 7 years, GreySheet worked for me, but I was getting these really hard messages, like from my daughter's counselors, that what I was doing was wrong, and that I needed to have like a normal family food thing, like a dinner time and a lunchtime and the healthy food. And I needed to be a role model too for my daughters. And so and if I ate one of those round sweet things, and then I wanted another one psychiatrist told me then I would just have to put the package down and maybe take a walk. What? Right. Okay. Like that was like, no, she actually said run around the block. And I thought, wait a second, that's way crazier than GreySheet. I mean, that's just bizarro. And I knew it. I knew in my heart that what I was doing for myself was the right thing to do. But it was really hard. It was hard. It was hard to like stay true. And fortunately, though, my daughter was in college then. And so she would go away and I would be able to not think about that. She would go to treatment centers 3 times. Anyway, so that was a hard period of abstinence, but I stayed abstinent through that. I can't believe I did. But after about like 7 or 8 years, I got married again, and I just started slacking. That's all I can really tell you. And I started cheating, and I stopped calling my sponsor. I stopped going to meetings, not altogether. It was phone meetings. I would not listen I would listen to phone meetings, but I never could get it back. And then so 10 years went by, and a lot of things happened in my life. My kids grew up, and I kept gaining weight. Despite the fact that I was trying to do GreySheet by myself, I just kept gaining weight. Imagine that. Oh no, my battery's going low. So
that's 10 minutes.
You guys, yeah, thank you, Jane. You guys have heard me talk about like the Walgreens, how I would be driving home from work. I go over this beautiful bridge, and I would say to myself, I'm not going to stop at the Walgreens today and get the big bag of stuff and eat it. And every day, maybe one day a week, I wouldn't, but I hardly hardly a day would go by where I didn't stop. And then I would just binge. And then I would get home and have to pretend that I hadn't. And then during COVID times, having to order the food that came and then order my stuff and hide it and sneak it without my husband knowing. I don't know why I cared about him knowing, except he knows me and he knows I'm a compulsive eater. And I don't know, but it was just ridiculous. And so one day I was listening to the phone meeting in the morning and somebody said she was available to sponsor. And so I called her and she was perfect for me. And that was October 30th, 2020. And then that's been it so far, right? And a day at a time, I guard my abstinence, but I also love it. And guess what? It works for me. So I'm afraid that I was thinking about what would take me back, what would make me leave or lose my abstinence. And that would be something to do with my daughter, my older daughter, because she has a little girl now and I love her. She's the apple of my eye and all that jazz. But I have this like fear that she's not going to want my granddaughter around me if I eat like this, because my daughter is convinced that I eat dysfunction, like that what I do is bad and wrong and isn't normal. And she can't hear that I don't think that this is for everybody, but it's for me. It's the only thing that's ever worked for me. I don't have any cravings. I don't think about food hardly one time in 3 years. I thought about eating something at the wrong time, but I didn't do it. It's like a miracle for me. It's like a miracle. And what it gives my daughter and her daughter is a present mother and grandmother. But I don't even know if she can hear that because of her history with eating disorders. And so I just kind of take it on faith a day at a time. This hasn't happened yet. I don't need to project this. I don't project it very often, but I wanted to talk about it tonight just to let you guys know what one of my fears is about Gray Sheet, because to me, I'm doing the same thing for myself and I'm healthy. All my numbers are good at the doctor. My feet don't hurt. I don't have all those symptoms that I got during the 10 years of day ones. I can help other people. I can do a good job at work and not be exhausted. And I'm full of joy and I love my food. I made my lunch last night and I said out loud, I can't wait to eat this. It's going to be so good. And it was so good. My people in the lunchroom at my time, they're just like, it's a joke almost, like how great my lunches are but they also think I'm so good, right? They don't even know that it has nothing to do with morality or anything like that, or self-discipline. I tried to explain to them that if I had one of those white things we don't eat and then didn't have a second one, that would be self-discipline, but not having them at all, that's a different kind of freedom. But they don't get it and they don't need to, and I don't need them to get it. I don't know why I feel like I need my daughter to get it. But anyway, that's where I am tonight. I'm so grateful for this meeting and the other meetings. The Zoom meetings are really good for me. I still listen to phone meetings sometimes when I need a little shot in the arm, but I like seeing people's faces and just being connected that way. I'll put my number in the chat. I'm also the treasurer, so I'll put my Venmo account in the chat. Little plug for Seventh Tradition, and that's all for me. I gotta plug my computer in so it doesn't die. So thanks so much.